Hey, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Tillman with another Tillman's Take. Now, my DM has been flooded with people wondering whether or not the death of Quadry Sanders out of Oklahoma was justified or not. This happened in December of 2021, and people are just curious of whether or not the actions are right or wrong. So let's get into it. Let's go ahead and talk about it.
Ron Tillman, real talk, it's the truth.
All right, guys, so the video's been going viral. People want to know whether or not these actions of the officers were justified or not. In order to do that, I have to first give you guys the context. The context is that the officers in Oklahoma responded to a call for service because there was belief that Quadry Sanders was violating a protective order. It was also believed that Quadry Sanders was also armed with a firearm. So the officers show up on scene. They make announcements for Quadry to come out the house. A female exits. After she exits, so does Quadry, but then Quadry runs back into the house. It's not until a little bit later that Quadry comes back out the house and the officers contact him underneath the carport. That's where the video picks up. And so before we watch the video, I want to advise you that viewer discretion is advised. And like I say in all these videos, no matter what happens, no matter who it is, death is always tragic. And so I want you guys to know that I truly, sincerely believe that. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump on into the video.
Hands, hands, down, 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 hands, 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 quit racing, quit racing, quit racing, I'm down, stay down, roll over, roll over, I'm down, I'm sorry.
All right. Like I told you guys, it's always tragic to see somebody die, whether it's justified or not. It sucks. With that being said, so was this justified? Now I'm going to tell you guys now, I'm not going to come out and say whether or not it's justified or not, because I want to see what happens in a trial. Why do I say the trial? Because for those of you guys that don't know, the DA actually filed charges against these two officers for manslaughter, and they were fired from their job. And so there is going to be a trial for this to determine whether or not the actions were justified by the officers or not. But the point is, or what we're here to talk about today is, why would the officers utilize deadly force in a situation like this? So just so you know, the officers did not locate a gun, which would also, make you believe that, oh, these actions of the officers were unjustified. But just because a person doesn't have a gun after the situation or incident is over, is that always a means to say right away that this was unjustified? Well, that's what we got to learn today. And so I'm going to show you guys a couple other videos today to kind of compare them to so that way we can understand what the mindset potentially was of the officers. And I say potentially because we don't know. We haven't heard their court testimony yet, so I say potentially. And before we do that, I want you guys to hear something. I'm going to go back to the video, and I want you guys to listen to what the officer says towards the end of the video. Let's play it one more time.
Hands, hands, down, 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 hands.
Now, this is where the officer is going to say something I want you to really tune into.
Hands, hands, quit racing, quit racing.
All right, did you hear what he said? He said, quit reaching, quit reaching. Now, why does that play into the mindset of an officer? Well, obviously, the officer is telling him to quit reaching because he is thinking that he's reaching for a weapon. So that shares a lot of light on the mindset and thought process of what the officer is doing or why he decided to utilize that deadly force. The last thing I want to do, and I hate going back and forth to this video again because it's tragic to watch the death of somebody, but I want to go to a freeze frame of a part where the officers have to make a judgment call. Now look at this freeze frame. This is right when the officers decided to pull the trigger. Now we have the luxury of watching this video from the sidelines, hindsight being 2020. We have the luxury of looking at this and saying, well, it looks like he's probably ducking behind a refrigerator. Now, if you're not sure how the human mind works, it takes a second and a half to perceive something and a second and a half to react to something. So we have the ability to go back and slow this video down, do it in slow motion. But as you watch this video, I want you to remember the officers don't have that luxury. They don't have the luxury to slow it down like we do. So in that split second, that officer had to make a quick decision of whether or not this guy, Quadry Sanders, was going to pull a gun out or was just doing something else. Now, with that being said, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over to another video that I want you to watch. And this video goes a lot into the mindset of officers and why they may decide to utilize deadly force when somebody makes a quick movement like that. I played this video before, but I'm going to play it again.
Dispatch, Echo 7. I'll be out with that subject. Come here, man. Come here for a second. Come here. If you don't, you better stop, or I would. Come here. Come here. Stop. 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 Take your hands out your pocket. Take your hands out your pocket. If you don't stop, so I'm gonna tase you. I'm not playing with you. Take your hands out your pocket. Take your hands out your pocket. Take your hands out your pocket. Shots fired!
All those shots that you continue to hear is a suspect shooting at the officer as he's running away. Now, did the officer ever see a gun in this person's possession? No. Never saw a gun. The officer comes out with a taser because in his mind he's thinking, well, you know, I'm going to a theft call. So the priority or the risk assessment is it's a low-level crime. And so, okay, I'm responding to a call for service for a theft. The guy has his hands in his pocket. Let me pull out a taser. Now, I will say the guy had thick clothing on, so whether or not that taser was going to be effective or not, it really doesn't really come into play here. It just goes back into the officer's mindset. In the officer's mindset, he's thinking it's a low-level offense. I'm going to pull out a less than lethal option to try to get this guy to comply. The guy is not complying. The officer never sees a firearm. And so I asked you the question, if the person right here, the suspect in this situation, were to pull out a cell phone that quick, and the officer just so happened to shoot back at that person and killed him, would it have been justified or not? Now, I guarantee a lot of people were going to say it was unjustifiable, because why would you shoot a guy that had his cell phone and made, turn towards you with a cell phone or a hat or whatever it is in his hand? But that wasn't the case. What we clearly saw is that that person pulled out a gun, pointed at the officer, and that officer had less than a second to react to that. Couldn't even react to it. The only thing he could do is run back to his vehicle. The officer gets shot in his neck, gets shot multiple times in his arm, and some of the last things he said is, hey, tell my family I love them. Now, luckily, the officer was able to survive. Why do I bring that situation up and compare it to the one that we just watched? Well, in this moment where this guy, Quadry Sanders, reaches behind that refrigerator, did the officers think that he was going to be reaching for a gun? We don't know. And we will only be able to find it out when it goes back to court. Now, some people are upset because they say, hey, at the very end, the officers, shot him on the ground multiple times. And then I told you guys, listen to what the officer said. And the officer says, quit reaching. Now, why would the officer say that? Now, I'm going to show you guys a still photo of another situation that actually happened in Huntington Beach, California last year. And in this situation, officers responded to a man with a gun call. And when they get there, they confront the guy who has a gun in his hand and he points it at officers. Officers elect to use deadly force. They shoot him. The man falls to the ground. And as he falls to the ground, he points the gun back up at the officers, and he's actually pointed at that officer right there that's pointing the gun back at him, and then they shoot him a few more times until he's dead on scene. Now, why do I bring this up is because in the video that we just watched involving Quadry Sanders, Quadry makes a quick movement towards his waistband and back up in the air, but it's happening quickly. And so the officers are making a split-second decision of whether or not he's actually pointing something or not. So although this video involving Quadry Sanders looks so awful, was it lawful? And we won't know that until we actually find out through the court proceedings what the officer's mindset was. And that's what it's going to come down to. Now, why do I bring that up? I bring it up is because there's going to be one of two ways this is going to go. Either the court or the jury is going to say, hey, look, we still don't buy it. We think that these officers murdered Quadry Sanders, even after all the testimony that's come out. Or they're going to go up on that stand and they're going to be like, hey, after listening to the officer's testimony and hearing their frame of mind and their mindset, we think their actions were justified. And I'm giving you guys that piece of advice to wait for these proceedings to come out, because if you determine based off of this video right here that these officers were unjustified and you guys get a justified verdict at the end, you're going to be upset. So that's why I give you guys all this different context before you determine and make a decision based off of this video as to whether or not their actions were unjustified or justifiable. So I wanted to give you guys a little bit of piece of information and some context as to the mindset and stuff. I'm not going to say whether or not this one is justified or unjustified based off of watching this video, because I want to hear what their mindset was. And the reason I want to hear what their mindset was is because I just gave you two other examples where officers were either shot or had a gun pulled on them, and officers had to make a similar split-second decision like they did in this video in Oklahoma. So with that being said, I hope you guys learned something from the video. I hope it gives you guys a little bit more context. Do me a favor, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you guys leave me some comments below. I want to hear what you guys have to say. And with that one, I'll see you guys later. Take care and God bless.
Ryan Tillman, real talk, it's the truth.